If you've been looking for a level 4 piece with a slower pace that's also easy to memorize, I've got a great one for you. In this teacher's guide, we're going to explore the song Sauble Sunset from Cottage Country, a collection of intermediate piano pieces by Ocean Tales Music. I'll explain the skills that this piece can help build, who it's for, a few tips on how to introduce it. We'll do a score walkthrough with a few teaching tips, and of course a performance. So let's dive in. The piece Sauble Sunset is found in the Conservatory Canada Contemporary Repertoire Syllabus Level 4 for examination purposes. This piece is great for teens or adults at a late elementary or early intermediate level who are comfortable playing in a key signature of up to 2 or 3 accidentals. The left hand in Sauble Sunset uses a common chord shape throughout the entire piece, and it does span an octave, but only plays 3 notes throughout. And I find this is great prep for students before they actually start playing larger 4-note chords. A great way to get your student used to playing that left-hand chord shape is to practice the chords of the E flat major scale using that shape. So the chord is E flat, B flat, E flat, and then keep the hand in that shape as you move up the scale. This piece is in 2/2 time, meaning 2 strong beats per measure. The way the right hand melody begins this piece is actually on a pickup or upbeat. So a good way to introduce the counting for this would be 1 and 2 and 1. You could also just say the counts for the strong beats. 1, 2, 1. And when you count the larger beats, 1, 2, it is easier to find that strong 2-beat feel per bar. Let's pop on over to the score and I'll share a few teaching tips for this piece with you. In this piece, the right hand has a motive that repeats throughout with subtle changes. One way that is helpful for students to learn this piece and memorize it is to know how this motive changes and when it repeats. So notice at the beginning, this motive repeats 3 times in the same way. So you'll see the 3 brackets that I have there from measures 1 to 6. Each repetition is exactly the same. Moving on to measure 8, you'll notice that from measures 8 to 15, there's a slightly different motive that also shares some repetition. So the notes are different, the shape is similar, and each time that this motive is repeated, the thumb note will change. So if you look at where I've written number 2, thumb moves, I've circled a C and then an E flat and then an F. Moving on to measure 12, the same thumb notes appear, C, E flat, and F, with the notes on the top of the motive repeating each time. Looking ahead to measure 16, you'll notice that the third type of motive is similar to the first motive in a bit of an inverted form. And that motive actually repeats 3 times as well. So in this way, you can teach the right hand quite easily because it has so much repetition between those motives. There's number 1, number 2, and number 3. Number 1 and 3 repeat the same version of the motive 3 times each, and number 2 has a little bit of variation within the thumb notes. Ties are an important part of Sauble Sunset, and they not only literally tie it together, but also to the ear. And what I mean by that is that it adds color and it also adds tension. So if we look at the tie in the right hand G note from the very first measure, even the pickup measure there, it's tied through more than 1 measure. And in measure 1, it adds the color of a major 7th chord to that A flat chord. And then in measure 2, because the note is still tied over, it sort of seamlessly blends to that E flat major tonic chord. Then in measure 9, you'll notice that the right hand thumb is again tied, and this happens each time that motive plays. All of those Fs that are tied, that's going to add tension. And you'll notice that the tied note sort of clashes with that G note above it each time, and that's going to add a little bit of dissonance, a little crunchiness to that sound. And really those Fs don't really resolve until measures 12 and 15. The next set of ties you'll see go from measure 16 to the end, and this is very similar to the color and effect we have at the beginning, except for at the end, that G is tied through several measures. The chords are moving around the G and in spite of the G. And so, to summarize, the ties do add another layer to the sound of this piece. They can round out chords, they can add tension, they can add color. And the pedal and the use of the pedal makes all of those colors, edges, blur, and they blur like a sunset. The final point I want to touch on happens at the longer chords, and I'd like to point out that these form cadences. So if you look in measures 1 to 2, for example, we have an A flat major chord leading to an E flat major chord, and that's the first plagal cadence. The other cadence-like occurrence I'd like to point out happens in measures 10 to 11 and 14 to 15. And this time we have a dominant chord or a B flat major chord moving upwards to a C minor chord, and this is going to form a deceptive cadence. These are really great learning points for students at this level who might be studying the rudiments of theory and learning about cadences at this time. So I love to point out those spots and how the cadences sound within this piece, especially when using longer notes like this to demonstrate it. Here's a performance so you can see my hands playing the notes and listen for all of the things that I've mentioned in this video so far. Sauble Sunset is a level 4, late elementary, early intermediate piece found in the collection Cottage Country. This is also a Conservatory Canada Contemporary Repertoire Selection level 4. You can purchase a digital version as well as studio licenses for Cottage Country on my website, oceantalesmusic.com. And hard copies are also available from Red Leaf Piano Works. If you're looking for more teacher's guides and ways to introduce pieces from Cottage Country for intermediate students of any age, please check out this video.